Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Gareth Soloway here with VerifiedInvesting.com, and we're going to get into the action here on a day. Generally, volume was quiet, but there are actually some interesting reversals going on into the end of the day we've got to talk about. Could be something bigger. We're not sure yet, but I'm going to cover it. So let's take a look at the charts here, or the action here. Right now, Dow is having a good day. A lot of this is Apple. Apple having a very big up day, even though it is seeing some selling into the end of the day. Dow is up 246 points. NASDAQ 100 up another 221 points. That's Apple. That's NVIDIA, although NVIDIA is only up slightly, but Broadcom's having another big day. A lot of these semiconductors are playing catch-up. We look at the S&P 500 up about 0.8% or 45 points, and oil is up again $1.35. So remember, we talked about how inflation via CPI was pretty nice last report. Well, again, that was because oil dropped 9% in May. Just in June thus far, we're up over 7% in oil. So again, maybe a little rope-a-dope there as we see inflation potentially roaring back in the latest month. All right, next up, we have gold down on the day along with Bitcoin. Bitcoin did recover quite a bit. Again, retesting that key technical level that I've talked to you guys about. And we bounced right up on Bitcoin after early morning selling. So let's come over here. Let's see what the markets are doing into the end of the day here, guys. So if we look at this, right, we look at a couple things. So number one, this is the intraday S&P 500. This was what I would call a melt up. And when I say melt up, what do I mean by that? Well, basically you had an open slightly lower, and then all of a sudden you could just see right here. This is where we were in the middle portion of the day, and we saw essentially just constant movement to the upside where it was very, very light volume. And that is normal for middle of the day, but this is a type of market we are in right now where you get these melt-ups. And right up we went. Now we're seeing a little end of day selling with about 2 minutes remaining in the trading day as we continue to watch us. Just a minor pullback, but melt-up is the name of the game. NVIDIA today was more flat versus Apple took the lead. As long as one of these trillion-dollar names is leading the markets are going to go higher, folks. It's just that simple. The massive overweight of these technology names is dominant in the S&P and in the NASDAQ 100. All right, so we're watching here with about 1 minute to go with the S&P pulling back just a little bit. I do want to touch base here. Take a look at Apple, folks. This is a big reversal on Apple into the end of the day. It was the leader, and it's still up. In all fairness, it's still up nicely on the day. But look at this end of day dumping here. It's bouncing just a little bit. But this is a big end of day dump, no doubt about that. Something to watch into tomorrow. Does it develop into anything bigger? Now, again, this is what I do as a trader. I say, okay, well, generally, that's an interesting end of day sell. Now, watch tomorrow closely. If we see follow through to the downside, it becomes a bigger reversal. But right now, again, it's not that big yet. It's just a pullback. In fact, you can almost see on an intraday 10-minute basis, right? See this little area right here? Let me switch to my yellow here so you guys can see it. Right there, and then look at where that stopped, right in that area, right there. So just a little tidbit on that front there on Apple as we continue to follow it into the end of the day. Couple other stocks seeing a little bit of minor selling here. If we bring up NVIDIA on the 10-minute chart, notice again, nice little end-of-day dump there, bringing NVIDIA, I think, to the negative side. First negative day on NVIDIA in quite a little bit of time. Markets have now closed, and again, NVIDIA trading just ever so slightly to the downside. Now, what does this mean? Well, when I look at a bunch of these big names that sold off right at the end of the day, that's institutional money most likely dumping, right? They're dumping into something. They're using that end-of-day volume surge, just like the opening volume surge, to unload positions. And obviously, they're unloading a little bit more aggressively into the end of the day today. Maybe something on the horizon that we are not aware of just yet, but something to keep an eye on. All right, a couple other things that were catching my eye today. If we look at the U.S. dollar yen, so the dollar yen here, guys, this is a chart that we have to monitor. The dollar yen is probably the most important thing that is not being talked about on a regular basis because it has implications from U.S. debt crisis to global debt crisis to intervention to dumping U.S. bonds to causing interest rates to pop even if the Fed doesn't want them to pop. All of these things need to be monitored. The last time the Bank of Japan intervened, that was the move right there. You see it dumped out. But look, we're slowly creeping up again closer to those highs. And this is going to be your level. If we get right back to this high, the markets will start to worry about something bigger at that point. So just something to keep an eye on the US dollar yen. Now, going into a couple of the other charts here today, let's look quickly at gold. Gold, again, continuing to put in sideways consolidation off of this range here. So, again, you have a bear flag development. I still would be slightly negative bias on gold in the short term, even though mid to long term I remain bullish. The key is going to be we got the down move. We're getting this inside bar chop. Do we come down and take out this low here? That is going to be your break point. If that breaks, you should go right down to this secondary line right there on gold. All right, if we look at silver, same general thing. Silver's just chopping around here. It does have multiple support levels right in here, trying to hold this downsloping pattern. If it breaks here, you get a bigger flush, maybe down to 25.5. But if it can hold here, eventually downsloping patterns break to the upside. Remember what I've taught you in the game plans, guys? This type of pattern usually breaks to the upside. Upsloping channels like this usually break to the downside. All right, so again, remember when I say usually, the reason I use the term usually is because it's probability based. There's no 100% in anything, especially in trading and technical analysis. It's all about getting probabilities in your favor. That's the best you can do. You get them as high as you can, and then you go with it, meaning that you're going to take losses. It's just a matter of how many losses. Can you get it to 70% win, 80% win? That's really Hall of Fame type status there. All right, a couple other charts here we should go over. We have oil on the daily chart. I'm just kind of looking at the overall viewpoints here. Just looking at this, oil was trading just shy of $80. This is a new trend line I have on for you guys here. This goes back to the COVID lows, goes through all of these lows here, and then through this high. That would be your max upside move. It also coincides with this high right here. That would be at $90. I don't suspect, at least I don't believe oil is going to go to $90, but we should be aware of upside potential. Now, really, my guess is, again, we're going to ultimately have a move maybe back to about 82 and then a bigger rollover. The case for the bigger rollover is that ultimately, if oil doesn't go down and it goes up, it's going to keep inflation up. If inflation stays up, the Fed can't cut rates. So inevitably, if rates stay high for longer, it's going to hurt the economy, which is then eventually going to make oil roll over and come to the downside. So regardless of whether oil goes to 82, 85, $90 a barrel, at some point, the U.S. economy will slow down enough where you see oil roll over and have a much bigger move to the downside. So it's just a matter of watching the charts, positioning accordingly, until that day finally comes. Lastly, let's go over Bitcoin right here. Bitcoin, remember, you have this here, and we had early in the day some selling pressure getting below that 66,000 level, and then by the end of the day, we floated up. Nothing's really changed on the chart. It's still a positive bias chart, meaning probability still favored the upside. And again, what you can see here is here's your channel, right? Channel. And look at the breakout, the retest, the retest, the retest, the retest, the retest, and it's still holding. Now, if it breaks and closes below, then probabilities shift to the downside. But right now, you have to respect the fact that every time it pierces that line, it's being held up. All right, now again, the daily close below, watch out below. But as long as you hold here, eventually the buyers are going to take over control. You know, they're the ones saving it here and here and here. So the sellers are trying to push it down. The buyers are, again, holding it up. If it stays above, eventually you would anticipate that sort of move. Any daily close below, honestly, probably down to this area in the low 50s, it would go. So just a few little tidbits there. Earnings-wise, we don't have a lot of earnings this week. There's a couple earnings later in the week that we'll go over. Same thing with economic news. Markets are closed on Wednesday. Stock market is closed, I should say, on Wednesday due to Juneteenth. So that's something that, again, could keep volume lightish tomorrow and then obviously Thursday and Friday. But for the most part, this market saw general upside movement in the stock market today. Commodities were kind of on the mixed side. Gold and silver down, oil up. And again, what we saw in crypto was an attempted flush. Altcoins got hit a little hard earlier, but even those coins have bounced back tremendously. All right, guys, that's it for me today on Trading the Close. As always, thank you for tuning in here to Verified Investing Studios here. I wish you all the best, and come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the game plan. Take care.